Oklahoma Gardening is a production of the Oklahoma Cooperative Extension Service as part of the land grant mission of the Division of Agricultural Sciences and Natural Resources at Oklahoma State University, dedicated to improving the quality of life of the citizens of Oklahoma through research-based information. Underwriting assistance for our program is provided by the Oklahoma Department of Agriculture, Food, and Forestry, helping to keep Oklahoma green and growing. Today on the Best of Oklahoma Gardening, we are taking a little trip south and east to Italy. We visit a rural, slow food cheesemaker and restaurateur, find out how the best olive oil is produced. In Bologna, we learn the process of making fresh pasta. And in a little hillside village, we chat with a butcher who has turned his shop into a modern epicureal destination, yet maintained the integrity of his family's rich product history.
Mi chiamo Mario Sarale.
You gave us a wonderful tour of your farm today. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got started, what you raise, what you produce here?
Barbara dice che hanno fatto un tour bellissimo qui alla fattoria e vuole sapere se dai qualche dettaglio in più sul vostro posto qui.
Certamente, grazie a voi per averci visitato. È sempre un piacere.
Mario is saying that he thanks you for coming to visit, and as he explained this morning during the visit, the place is not set up for tourists at all. It is not a crystal palace as he calls it. It's not a fake place, but it is exactly their routinely everyday life that we get to see here, their job, what they do, what they produce, which is exactly what they do for their living. He explained that in his family it's 7 brothers and sisters. He's the 6th, and he is a technician as other brothers. His older brother is a veterinarian. So among all of them, with all their expertise, they were able to pick up the family business and run it. And so Mario's explaining that 24 years ago, just after he was done with his studies, he went to his father, who didn't produce milk at all at that point. He was just producing, cheese. He was just producing milk. He went to his father and he asked for a little room if he could try and produce cheese. And he started with 2 or 3 types 24 years ago. And he's adding 2 or 3 types every year, and now they are up to 47.
Do your children, do you have children in the family between all the brothers that are going to follow in the business?
Sì, siamo una famiglia numerosa e I nostri figli, I miei
So yes, there is a younger generation. They're still too young, they're still studying. And he insisted on the fact that there's no pressure on these children to get into the fold. As they did, as Mario and his brothers and sisters did, they were welcome to follow their own passions and inclinations, so it's not a given that they will be working in the family industry. This was a very nice anecdote. He's saying that, again, they weren't cheese producers before him, and it all started by chance, just because he didn't pass his last high school year. He had to repeat it. And so he went through that final exam that for us is very big in Italy twice, and so he was a bit late in looking for a job. His classmates had already done it the year previously. But it was just because of that one more year that he found the first job in a cheese factory and he started being interested with it.
Obviously, you have a great passion for your business, and it has so many branches. I've been really impressed with what you've shown us today, where you started with the milk and then the cheese and the different varieties of cheese and then the hogs, and it just continues to grow. And one of the things that you have done is to export to the U.S. Has that been an easy process for you, working with through the red tape and through the marketing and the whole process?
No, è stato anche qua molto casuale perché.
So another anecdote actually, because he says the sending to the US and starting to work with the US market was another random thing that happened. His very first client, his very first customers 24 years ago when he started producing cheese was a person from the US, Mr. Chano from Boston, who is still today an importer of Mario's cheese, came, and he always gives this example when people say you're in the middle of nowhere. No, it's not easy to find you. But this guy at the time, 24 years ago, with no satellite, with no Google Maps, perhaps arrived in Milan with a plane and got a taxi and he found him here in his courtyard without having had as much as a phone call. And so he started importing, but they had the most difficulties doing it in Italy, he said. And once they went through that process, they were already expert, I guess. And so dealing with the US was not a big deal.
I think this is very encouraging because Oklahoma is in the middle of the United States, and that's one of the problems that we have is reaching out and getting our products out. So it's wonderful to hear someone from even further away and have so much success in this. As you look forward, as you talk to people, what is the crystal of what you want people to think about you? What do you want your image to be as far as your business, your attitude towards what you do, and how do you want people to remember?
I prodotti fanno la loro parte.
So in a case of someone who tries the products, because of course he says most of the work is the products themselves that do it, if it's a good product. People will remember it. But he says in case of someone trying their cheese and without having been here, he would like people to think, I want to meet this guy now that I've tasted his products. I want to meet Mario.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I am so glad I did meet you, Mario.
Thank you very much.
Grazie.
Grazie, prego.
Grazie Mario, thank you.
Cinquantaquattro, 54.
Giulio, in the U.S., we have great difficulty choosing olive oil. We don't know regular from virgin to extra virgin. We don't know enough. We're here to have you educate us on the differences and how to choose.
Ok, allora capisco che abbiate delle difficoltà perché le abbiamo anche noi in Italia.
So what Giulio says is that he understands the difficulty in being able to recognize a good product. The first thing he would recommend is to look for extra virgin olive oil. Definitely that's the best quality. And olive oil is a, let's say, byproduct, so definitely less quality. Another factor is price. So if you want to have a good olive oil, extra virgin olive oil, you need to spend a little bit of money because olive oil production is a costly matter. And then there's the four senses involved in the choosing, in the recognizing if an oil is good or bad. The first thing he says, it's color. It has to be a vibrant green color, not a yellowish color. Extra virgin olive oil becomes yellowish when it becomes old. And then smelling the oil and tasting the oil are definitely two other factors. It has to both smell and taste like flowers, vegetables, grass. It has to be spicy and bitter, not sweet, no fatty tastes, no vinegary tastes. That is another way of recognizing a good extra virgin olive oil.
In your discussion earlier when you were speaking with the full group, you talked about that the olive oil from different parts of Italy will have different flavors. Can you address that just a little bit? And I think the fascinating thing about that is that when we find one, we shouldn't think that's the only one.
Come ho spiegato, l'unico modo per avere un olio di qualità è partire da un'oliva di qualità.
He says that the so many different varieties that we have in Italy, and he thinks in Tuscany alone, in this region where we're now, he thinks it's around 100 different types. It's not of olive oils, it's of olive trees or olives. So it's the genotype that's the difference, that it makes the difference of the taste and of the flavors, of course. All this variety, he says, enriches the olive oil in the sense that there are extra virgin olive oils made with just one olive type, but he thinks they are not the best. It makes for a bit of a flat taste. So if you put together a blend of many different types of variety, this also, all the possible combinations, you result in even more possible extra virgin olive oil flavors. But he also says that even though each production has its own personality, and that's the uniqueness to that oil, there are some certain qualities that have to be respected by every good extra virgin olive oil, which are the ones that he said before: color, the fact of having vegetables or flowery flavors. You might have carrots and artichoke here in Tuscany and maybe tomatoes in Sicily, but it's still a vegetable-y flavor that you will look for in a good olive oil.
Julio, I want to thank you so much for coming and sharing your expertise, your knowledge with us. I think we'll go forward and make better choices in our markets from now on. Thank you.
È stato un piacere. Se tornano in Italia,
he says you're welcome. It was his pleasure, and if you're ever back in Italy, come visit him at his farm so that he can go forward on step 2 of the lesson.
We would love to.
Thank you.
In Italy, we had the opportunity to watch a sfolina, which is a person who is an expert in making pasta. And this was an exciting event for me and for some of the students. We had the chance to actually do some of the formation ourselves. So let's look at how this process works from the original ingredients, the flour, the eggs, and how it moves through until you actually get a finished product. One of the first things they started with was the flour, and this is not the same kind of flour that we use here. In fact, this flour is a little bit more difficult. This is called 00 flour, and it's done based on how finely it's ground rather than the protein content. So it actually has a little bit less flour than we have, or less protein than we have, but the grind is much finer. The next thing that's going in is eggs, and you'll notice how she's making this volcano cauldron with the flour and the eggs, and gradually, slowly working those eggs in. So being able to do that without getting a gap in and having everything spilling out all over the counter will take a little bit more practice than maybe most of us want to go through. But that's how it's done there. It's not done in a bowl, it's done on the counter. The other thing that you need to be aware of as they do this is that the pastas are different based on what's readily available in what part of the country. Once the dough is formed, then she's going to set that aside, wrap it in plastic, and it needs to rest. Now, the idea of allowing that dough to rest is that the water gets more evenly absorbed by the flour, but also the gluten that she's been forming has a chance to relax a little bit so that it will become more elastic. She's going to take that dough and roll it with the most beautiful rolling pin that you'll ever see. That it is so much longer than what we tend to use here for our pies and breads that we make. But it takes a large space, and she is an expert. This is what she does for a living. And so she's going to roll that really, really thin until she can actually see the grain of the wood of the table below what she's using. That's the thinness that she's going to work with. Now, this is important for some of the shapes of pasta that she's going to be making. Different kinds of pasta are not going to use the eggs. They're going to be made with flour and water. She demonstrated for us how to make many, many shapes, but using always the same dough. So it didn't always work quite as perfectly as she would have liked, but this is the traditional pasta in her area. Now, one of the common forms of pasta, the common shapes, will be the tortelloni. Many of us here are familiar with the tortellini, which is small and often filled with meat. Tortelloni is larger and often filled with a cheese or an herb-flavored cheese, or maybe a little bit of vegetable mixed in with that cheese. And it's also for special events. This is not something, as you can see from the effort she's putting into, that you're going to, make every week while the kids are at school and that kind of thing. This is going to be something that's going to be made on special events. Families might work together to make this, just like families with a Hispanic background might get together and make tortillas for Christmas. This is the same kind of thing. Traditionally, this would have been done by the woman of the house or the grandmother of the house while the kids were away at school and the husband was away. Now, so many more of the women there are working that this is becoming a lost art. So it's something that is more rare, that some of the older women are trying to teach the young ones while they still are able, so that the traditions can be passed along. So the tortelloni is a real common one. Another real common one would be tagliatini, and this is long, long ribbons. And you can see that there's a skill not only to rolling it out and slicing it. She's folded the dough over so it's not a real long slice. It's just rolled over nicely and then slices maybe 4 inches across and maybe an inch wide at the most. And then those are held up. And isn't that lovely how she can hold that up and fling it out and all those ribbons come flowing. And then those are broken into smaller pieces and cooked. And would be incorporated in the sauce. She also demonstrated a multitude of other shapes, whether it be macaronis, which they roll out on a ridged surface so that the pasta, when it's done, will have that ridge on it, which will help hold the sauce onto the pasta, which is something you'll see in the markets here already done, but it was really awesome to see how it's actually done in a traditional way. Now, most of the time, the shapes that she is making, you'll notice that there's often little bits of end pieces. They don't throw things away. Just like good Oklahomans don't throw things away. We use all the bits up. We don't throw it out. The same thing happens when they're making pasta. But when they get to those very ends, what is often referred to as the bad pieces.
So, even in this case, we are going to cut the pasta in a bad way. The result are the bad cuts.
The pieces that have had to be re-rolled a little bit, and then they're cut just every which way. And then those are the pieces that would often be used in something like pasta e fagioli or other dishes. So a multitude of shapes, couple of kinds of dough that they start with, and then surprisingly not a massive number of ingredients go together to make an amazing array of food. I think if you haven't had a chance to experience some of this, looking at what can be done with a small amount, either by eating in Italy, by eating in an Italian restaurant, or looking at cookbooks and then creating in your own kitchen, I think you're going to be really happy with what you can come up with.
the salami with red wine. The salami we choose the meat from the shoulder.
Andrea, thank you for having us. We are delighted to be in the beautiful town of San Miniato.
Thank you.
It is absolutely gorgeous, as is your meat shop. So could you explain a little bit how your family came to own such a thing? Because I know you've been here for generations now.
Yes, I am a 4 generations. Some Vasco, my grandfather, after my father Sergio, and now I. As a 4 generation since 1925. And when I start to work here, I respect my background, my culture, my historic family, traditional, and I choose to change a modern method for the butcher's method, as a new philosophy, a new method for when I was young. And after I continue to the live concerts or performance inside the butcher shop, and very interesting when call me for all parts in the world to teaching the method for cut and makeup products.
Do you feel that the community has embraced you? I know that you're far-reaching, much beyond the community, but the community, you are able to use local ingredients. Do you hire people to gather the fennel seeds and things like that?
Yeah, when we use the ingredients for makeup products, it's very original from the local.
Mm-hmm.
Because we born for local culture, and we don't change the method. We respect, but we have an evolution for makeup products.
Right.
But you can study and you can organize it to survive at this change, to this natural change. It is natural. It's not very so nice, but it's you can organize it. Yeah.
Yeah. Would you recommend that other people try to follow, not necessarily with meat, but follow this system of respecting the tradition, working forward with evolution and imagination and creation, but following a slow food philosophy?
Yeah, it's very important, your background, because it's your identity. Now, as okay, we respect the recipes, we respect the method for make our recipes or products, but you studying for yourself is the evolution to make a products or make our recipes for the kitchen. And because the epoch is a change, the taste for the people is a change.
Yes.
For respect your background, but for new era.
I think not only with the food, but with everything else in the culture.
Yeah,
that is
sure.
so important. That's why
Yes,
we have
because
our
it's a
students
food
here.
that's important, but the food is from the culture.
Yes.
And you studying the foods, the recipes, the meat, organic, fish, what you prefer. But it's important studying the culture for the place.
Yes.
We can change. We can.
Yeah. We all do whether we want to or not, but it's nice to have some control over how you're making the change. I want to thank you for taking a few minutes from your day
No,
to visit
thank
with
you.
us. We really appreciate it. We're from the center of the United States in Oklahoma.
Yeah, sure.
So
I know
it's,
Oklahoma because I show you the Thunder, basketball.
Yes,
yeah,
definitely. The
Westbrook, Paul George. I like so much basketball, NBA, and I show you the match in the nights because we have the jet lag. And,
Yeah.
that's about that.
Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you. Ciao.
There are lots of great horticultural events this time of year. Be sure and consider these activities when you're making your plans for the weeks ahead. Next week on the Best of Oklahoma Gardening, we'll have our own little herb festival. Host Casey Hinches will explore our aromatic friends as she picks the best herbs, basil varieties, mints, cilantros, and more. We hope you have the time to stop by. For more TV you'll grow to love. To find out more information about show topics, as well as recipes, videos, articles, fact sheets, and other resources, including a directory of local extension offices, be sure and visit our website, oklahomagardening.okstate.edu. And we always have great information, answers to questions, photos, and gardening discussions on your favorite social media as well. Join in on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can find this entire show and other recent shows, as well as individual segments on our Oklahoma Gardening YouTube channel. And tune in to our OK Gardening Classics YouTube channel to watch segments from previous hosts. Oklahoma Gardening is produced by the Oklahoma Cooperative Extension Service as part of the Division of Agricultural Sciences and Natural Resources at Oklahoma State University. The Botanic Garden at OSU is home to our studio gardens, and we encourage you to come visit this beautiful Stillwater jewel. We would like to thank our generous underwriter, the Oklahoma Department of Agriculture, Food, and Forestry. Additional support is also provided by Pond Pro Shop, Greenleaf Nursery and the Garden Debut Plants, the Oklahoma Horticultural Society, and the Tulsa Garden Club.